Every 11 seconds, there's a new ransomware attack. Oil pipelines, universities, corporations, all paying millions of dollars. Barracuda says, don't pay the ransom. Before a ransomware attack occurs, train your teams to recognize an attack and use anti-phishing technology. Protect your applications, and they can't get onto your network. Simple backup and restore solutions quickly recover your data without paying the ransom. Build your ransomware protection plan now by visiting securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda. People require access from anywhere to resources everywhere, but legacy security is ill-equipped for today's hybrid organization. Appgate SDP delivers zero-trust network access for hybrid workforces and workloads, empowering trusted users with secure, frictionless connections to only what they need. Make your attack surface invisible and reduce time to provision by 91% with Appgate SDP, a leader in the 2021 Forrester ZTNA New Wave. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Appgate. Cyber risk and compliance automation is finally here. Legacy GRC systems cannot support the powerful, real-time automation and oversight that organizations require to take risks that matter to succeed. CyberSync continuous control automation ingests data from the IT GRC stack to update controls against regulatory requirements and risks in real time, delivering insights and visibility. See how members of the Fortune 500 are saving millions annually by visiting securityweekly.com/CyberSync.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque and Ben Carr. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on your RSA Conference 2022 full conference pass. RSA Conference will be live in San Francisco, February 7th to 10th, 2022. Security Weekly will be there in full force, delivering real-time live coverage and interviewing some of the event's top speakers and sponsors. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC2022 and use the discount code 52UCyber. We hope to see you there. Join us January 20th to learn how to build your own security lab at home. Don't ask me to do it, but I think the gentleman on this webcast will be perfect for that. Don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcasts and technical trainings by visiting securityweekly.com/on-demand. All right, gentlemen, our last set of articles for the week. And as you guys know me, I try not to do like the predictions for 2022, and we're not going to do a bunch of New Year's resolution junk when we get back. So let's get to some meaty articles instead of the fluff pieces. So this first article, I pulled a couple I had so many articles last week because we were off for a couple weeks that I saved a couple for this week. And the first one was this whole discussion about the C-suite's concern around regulatory sanctions after ransomware attacks. Because we've seen this uptick in ransomware this year. We've seen guidance from the U.S. saying, you know, the Treasury, don't pay the ransom, don't pay the ransom. This is an ISC squared study out of, I believe, the UK, out of Europe, looking at some of the concerns from the C-suite when it comes to ransomware. And their biggest concern is really like, are we going to get more regulated? Like, they're not regulated enough, right?
No, and honestly, something I didn't see in the article, and it's some trending that I'm starting to see across the industry, is will we be covered by cyber liability insurance in the future? We've had so many customers as of the last 30 to 60 days getting letters saying they will no longer have cyber liability insurance. It's absolutely amazing the amount of folks, the amount of organizations that are receiving these letters. It's concerning to me because that's a place where they'll no longer be able to lean on insurance in the after effect, right?
And Jason, I don't know if you've noticed in those, but the things that have been outscoped, right, or the exclusions that have been put in. So, you know, I noticed that nation state, a lot of insurers are putting in, you know, exclusions. So if it's nation state related, then they're not required.
Active war. They're calling it active war, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even though war hasn't formally been declared.
I know, but it's really starting to become concerning to me as I'm seeing this I'll call it telemetry coming through. As we have clients raise their hand and say, "Oh no, what do I do?" I literally just got a letter saying I'm no longer going to be insured for cyber. That's a scary place to be, right? And I mean, some of them get letters saying we're going to try to find a new provider or something like that, but there's no guarantee. And then with that letter, there's a list of like 15 things that they're going to have to show evidence of in order to even gain that back if they can find a new provider.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested, both Matt and Jason, like your thoughts on, if you think about, you brought up insurance, like, are we asking the wrong questions, right? I read an article basically comparing, the cost of insurance versus, in a way, self-insuring by making a further investment in your cyber program.
Sure.
Like, it's actually less expensive in a lot of cases to invest the right amount of money to do the protection. Yeah. So this article, I was interested, like, are we worried about, regulations and sanctions, or should we just really worry about protecting things the right way on the front side? Like, sanctions and regulations are a result of not doing the things that we should do.
That's exactly it. And it's funny as you're reading through the article, you see that 71% of the organizations feel that they're well prepared. Are we overestimating our preparedness? Because the news, if you're looking at the wire, it sure doesn't show that 71% of organizations are well prepared. I mean, look at everything that's happening. So
would 71% of CISOs say they're well prepared? That's the real question, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
No,
I don't think so.
Look, oh gosh, we're not going to get to all the articles at this rate. So, couple things. Number one, cyber insurance was the easy button, Ben, for a lot of people, because they didn't have to justify the investments, because they were getting put into policies, base policies, as part of your general liability insurance. And so people are like, hey, I don't have to do anything. I've got a cyber policy. We knew these chickens were going to come home to roost. Mm-hmm. We knew darn well that at some point...
We talked about this 2 years ago, Matt. We talked about this 2 years ago.
That as claims went up, one of two things were going to happen. You were either going to go out and assess to change the premiums, or you're going to start dropping people. Here we are 2 years later in exactly the scenario we knew was going to play out. So the reason nobody made the investment, Ben, is because cyber insurance was the easy button. It was included in my policy. I'm good to go. Now we've learned. Now, let's take the second side of this. 71% prepared. We just ran an InfraGard survey. The median score was 68 out of 100. That's a D at best. That's a D at best. There's no way 71% of organizations are prepared for ransomware, and that was a ransomware baseline study. Okay? Yeah. So our data is off, guys, and all we're going to see is more of this. So the fourth recommendation in this article is to look at your investments. Yeah, it's like going back to the basics. Like, how are you going to build a security program and make the investments so you're not caught off guard, and then having these regulators breathe down your neck for the next 3 years?
Yeah. And I think we're in it. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was going to say, I think, is this that aligning of the stars that's going to force us as cybersecurity leaders and business leaders to really change our mindset? Because we're going to be overregulated, right? We're going to have high fines in front of us. And at the end of the day, our binky is getting pulled out of our mouth and thrown in the trash. No more cyber liability insurance is in our future. It has to force some behavior.
And I think really right now, like, there's an interesting concept that companies should think about. There's a first mover advantage here, right? Like, if you get out there in front of this and you actually put a good program in place, you have the capability now to say you've got a competitive advantage. And so from a sales perspective, you could lead with that. But, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when that's not there anymore, you won't have that fast mover advantage. You'll just be trying to keep up. So I think actually companies need to think about this in just a different way than they have been. It really could be a beneficial outcome.
Well, and at the end of the day, that's our job as the security leaders of the business, is to go in front of the business unit leaders and show how it can become a competitive advantage. This is the differentiation that we bring to the table for our customers. We have to be that's why understanding the business is an incredible thing. Once you have that, when that's incredible intelligence that you have on how you can take security, make it a true business enabler and a competitive advantage.
Yeah, we're going to get to America's Cyber Reckoning. This article that we're going to cover and like 3 more, to me, brings all this together, right? We've just kind of sat back and just let this happen. We need to change our approaches, and it happens at the federal level as well. This is not just an organizational thing. And I think this article we're going to cover here in a few minutes is really this culmination of all this stuff coming to a head, guys, because how else do we address it? The first recommendation, not to get too far ahead, is we need a standard data security regulation. right?
That's right. That's right.
We've talked about this, Jason. Like,
stop making us juggle 50. Stop making us juggle 50. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And it leads back into this. All right. So before we get there, the 3 pillars of the office of the CISO. Interesting way to think about this. They talk about the office of the CISO. It's not a single person. It's multiple kind of roles in the office. You've got your strategy, governance, oversight. You have your operational side. And then they call this thing talking and partnering, which I assume is building relationships, understanding the business, and being there to make sure you're a business leader. But that's what I assumed it was.
Yeah, me too. I struggled with a little of this because there's so much more, and I'm hoping that in this strategy there's more components than the bullets that are listed under each one of them. Right? I mean, just training and enablement is one that I didn't see, and not training and enablement for the security staff. I'm talking business training and enablement for the entirety of the business, right? I didn't see that in here anyway. Or is that just folded into operations? I don't know.
I don't know.
Operations was a strange bucket because it seemed really like project manager, recruiting, onboarding, and minimize at the end, alert tuning, crisis preparation and testing, right? But actually running the program and the tools, like the core of operations, kind of seem to be downplayed here. So I don't know. That was strange.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, in general, operations make sense because there's a lot of operational components, but not the way they were summarized here to both of your points.
Yeah. I mean, I would look at this as if you're just getting started, this could give you a good trajectory into making an office of the CISO, but there's a lot more to this, right? As you start to mature, maybe this is a good way to start making a move if you haven't already.
And I've seen this office of the CISO term used, but mainly for companies that are offering services, and they have virtual CISOs or field CISOs like offering services around it. So
that's it too, right? It's the client facing side, right? Yeah. A lot like the office of the CTO for an IT services organization.
Exactly.
Yeah. But if you're a fearless CISO, you can secure your environment with 4 simple things.
Just 4 easy ones, Matt.
Yeah, one from every house in Harry Potter, right? One wand from every house.
You are Gryffindor.
This article starts out pretty good, right? Commit to a zero trust strategy. Talk about managing compliance, risk, and privacy. We've talked about risk a lot. Then it goes straight to technical, Okay, so if you lay out those first 2, then you go straight to XDR and SIM. Are you kidding?
Right.
Yeah. And use MFA. It's very, very targeted at the end. It was strange how they did that. I agree.
I looked at this article the second I started to read it and start getting down to bullet. As soon as I got into bullet 1 toward the end of it, I started realizing that this was a product pitch. I mean, you get to bullet 2, it's a product pitch.
It is.
Or a suite of products, I'll say.
Yes, a suite of products, because I believe this came from the Cisco side of the house. I think it was one of the Cisco
Microsoft.
CISOs.
This was Microsoft.
I would have thought Microsoft. Defender, Sentinel, and what else? They use Azure AD, right?
At the end of the day, I'm a fan of building out an ecosystem. I'm a fan of having that consistency across technologies. I'm a fan of that. But the article was set up as to be educational and knowledge share, and then it got into product pitch, which I didn't really dig that.
Because if you're going to build a zero trust strategy, it's devices, users, applications, network, and data.
Yep.
Where does XDR and SIM? I mean, yes, okay, I got to do some logging, I got to do this, that, and the other thing. MFA kind of ties to it, but you miss so many other pieces that have to be addressed if you're going to go down a zero trust strategy. So, Anyways. All right. My big article of the day. This is America's Cyber Reckoning. This gives a tremendous amount of history about the previous administrations and the current administration's kind of thought process around America's cybersecurity strategy. Now, I just did a lunch and learn internally last week around the origins of the NIST cybersecurity framework, the zero trust architecture that's also come out from NIST, and kind of where the current executive order is going to take this. But that's not enough. And this article really gets into some brass tacks, like what has to happen in Washington to move us forward from a cyber defense perspective, from a security perspective. And the first practical step the administration should take is to prioritize the defense of data, not as a bunch of state regulations, but as a federal requirement.
That's right. So now, I've been involved in some of this because I sit on Congressman Langevin's Cybersecurity Advisory Committee. He's a congressman from Rhode Island. He co-chairs the Cybersecurity Caucus in DC. He's really been, I'll call him the OG of cybersecurity at the federal government level. I mean, he's going on 12, 13 years of preaching from upon high about how important cybersecurity should be. So, I mean, kudos to Congressman Langevin for fighting that fight for so long. A lot of the recommendations you're seeing about the future, and again, let's look in the rearview mirror for about 2 seconds here and say, we failed in the past, but now let's look in the windshield and make some good changes for the future, because I'm sick of looking in the rearview mirror complaining about the past. But ultimately, I don't know if you guys know about the Cyber Solarium Commission, but that's where the new cybersecurity director came in from. He started as that Solarium commissioner, he was on that commission as one of the board members. Inglis, I believe is his name. And, a lot of these recommendations came out of this Solarium Commission. And I'm glad to see, because again, these are subject matter experts that they brought in to start shifting the mindset of the federal government and how they view cybersecurity. Number one was putting a director in place. Coming out of the commission as well was have a federal level privacy law or policy that can go across all 50 states instead of having individual states. So I hope that a lot of the information and recommendations that came out of that Solarium Commission get implemented, because they're really, really good strategies that the federal government needs to look at.
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, Jason, don't you think this is kind of a macrocosm of what we face, like an individual company level with, where does the CISO report? Like, what's the responsibility? What's the investment?
Yep.
I mean, it's the same discussion. And, I applaud the whole, let's create a space force, but I really think like a cyber force would have been much more beneficial in the long run, right? I mean, I think we're still missing out on the importance and where the focus needs to be to actually get some real change at the federal level.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I say kudos to the folks who are on this, number one, on the Cybersecurity Caucus from a congressman and from a Senate perspective, because just in conversations, ripping through the bureaucracy that's self-inflicted on our federal government is just an insane task to tackle, right? I mean, we've built so much bureaucracy within our government that it's a tough nut. So changing hearts and minds to that degree has taken a long time, but this right now is the opportunity. And you're absolutely correct. We need to have, that department that the newly minted director is in be strategic for all of our federal agencies.
Yeah, independence and authority.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, you've got CISA really stepping up with a lot of guidance, but they don't have enough budget. The money that's been allocated is definitely not enough to continue that. Yeah. And so you're also going to have to leverage the FBI, potentially relationships overseas. I mean, we have serious economic potential issues between what's happening with Russia and China and other countries. Like, our economic viability hinges a lot on our cyber defense strategy going forward, because if we don't get this stuff in, look at the supply chain issues we already have. What happens when you shut down a power grid? What happens when you shut down other components that are fueling the economy?
I mean, these are conversations that we've talked about on the show. These are conversations we've talked about with Paul in the past, that, as a nation state these days, it's not about bullets and bombs anymore. Mm-hmm. How do you want to cripple a competitive nation? You take out their energy, you take out their water, you take out their ability to grow food and deliver food. That's how you take them out at their knees, and you cripple their economy. You cripple their business.
Jason, I think you see a lot of nation states that have recognized this, right? I mean, it's truly a force disruptor. I mean, okay, you can't compete, with the U.S. on a military level, but if you cripple the supply operations that deliver fuel to the military, if you cripple the information systems that are actually, making it easy for U.S. to target a nation, then what use is the military, right? And so I think that's where I think, as you rightly pointed out, the next battlefield isn't going to be physical, right? It's going to be fought in a digital space.
It is
100%.
Because if you're in the heat of the battle, what's one of the first things you figure out? How to cut off the supply chains. Our supply chains are all digital. In the world.
The next shock and awe is going to be with the computer. It's not going to be sending missiles to take out anti-air batteries.
Yep. Yeah. The bullets will come out later when it's literally occupation time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the boots on the ground are gone. I don't see the boots on the ground anymore. It's going to be one of those scenarios where you take down a country, and then you bring the military in just to tie things up.
Yeah, and secure the perimeter and take care of the people. But most of the battle is going to be fought remotely with drones.
So ultimately, we need to start bringing our A game at the federal level, right? Because
agreed. I mean, this last paragraph, I think, sums it up. If American policymakers have learned anything in the past decade, it is that cyber conflict is a murky business, one that resists black and white notions about war and peace. That lack of clarity in the battle space makes it all that more important for Washington to be clear about its goals and strategies.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's 100%.
Do it. That's why I wanted to cover this article, because I think it is so important.
It's a good one. It's a good one for the future of this country.
Yeah. All right. I did pull in one set of cybersecurity priorities for 2022. It's an IDG report. I only did it because I'm curious, has anything really changed? I just did I do moderate some of our CISO roundtables. The Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum does monthly peer-to-peer roundtables across the country. I actually hosted and moderated the last one last Thursday with a group in Arkansas, and I was curious, the things I took out of that discussion, because we talked about what's on your priority list for next year. I wanted to compare it to this article. Is there a connection between what I hear from the CISOs in the field versus what all these surveys say? Here's my take. So cloud data protection technologies, top priority list. Did I hear that? Kinda. I'm hearing a lot around application security and moving more and more of application security controls to the left, because that is where they see a lot of gaps. They don't have a good idea of what third party, Log4j vulnerability last week, just highlighted all the dependencies in your code, right? So application security is pretty top on the list. Not as much about cloud, but if you're running applications in the cloud, there's some crossover. But I didn't hear a lot about cloud data protection. I heard a lot about AppSec last week. So maybe a little misalignment. The second one was around SOAR technologies, right? CISOs have also indicated high interest or use of security orchestration, automation, and response. Guess what I heard from the CISO? They're actually reevaluating their SIMs first. They're not ready for SOAR. They're actually trying to figure out, is this SIM going to scale for me? Can I afford this SIM? Because a lot of regulated industries have to store a lot of data. I've got a lot of CISOs re-looking at their SIM strategies for next year to offload the costs before they're ready to go down a SOAR path. So again, I see a little mismatch.
I've had a ton of conversations with folks around them building out their internal SIM, realizing that it's way too much of a nut for them to chew off, couldn't handle it, too much data, really becoming more noise than anything. And they're looking at an outsourcing strategy, right? How do we uplift or forklift what we built internally that doesn't seem to be adding value, and maybe put it in the hands of subject matter experts and outsource it there, and then take the folks that you have today and make them more strategic in the business, right? Because ultimately, if you're not bubbling up the important information, you're just getting consumed on the daily with data, and you're reactionary all the time.
That's the problem on the SIM side, right? Is people have been collecting the data just for the sake of collecting the data without starting at what are the use cases I'm trying to attain? Let me collect that data and analyze it, then add use cases and collect more data. it's just been a dumping ground, right? And so how do you get to SOAR when that's the problem that you're facing on the
yeah,
side?
Right. Or should we say dumpster fire? Maybe it's been a dumpster
fire. It could be
a dumpster fire. It could be a dumpster data lake. I don't know, because that's what everybody's trying to figure out. Like, do I keep the head of my SIM around and change its back end, or do I swap the whole thing out? I mean, that's what they were talking about last week, which I have found interesting, because I thought the SIM kind of was like settled, but it's not. In
cost.
So, yeah, there's still a lot of activity going on there. So I'm not sure some of these surveys fully align to what's actually happening in the trenches.
I mean, if there's one thing we're realizing is our data is not unified. There's conflicting stories in every article I think I read. So
yeah,
it's just it's too bad, because we have these articles that you start reading and you think they're going to add value, and then all of a sudden they become a product pitch or something to that effect. And
right.
I think we just need to get aligned.
Yes, get aligned. This last article that we're going to cover for 2021 is how to include cybersecurity training in the employee onboarding process. This is one long checklist. I was going through it. I started it. I'm like, oh my God, this is like 13 items. I just kept going until I got through the bottom. So some of it makes sense to me, but man, to me, checklists got to be somewhat short and succinct. This one's not very short.
At the end of this, I think this article highlights the fact that we've been doing it wrong all along. I think a component of security during onboarding is important, but I think calling it training is doing a disservice to what we need to be doing, because we need to be educating. We need to be educating, right?
Yeah.
We need to be educating on a cadence. We need to be educating to people's personal lives so they can carry it into work with them. We need to switch how we look at this, and formalized training fails at every angle. So how do we embed knowledge transfer? How do we embed knowledge transfer and education into the daily?
Yeah, the whole concept of training as an event that you do, it's a one-time, right? It's when you start, it's once a year. Like, it just misses out on the continual cycle that needs to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a huge distaste for that type of strategy.
Yeah, and they talk about the ongoing cybersecurity education piece, but it's like at the end, and all these other things are just like really, I got to implement a VPN for all my remote workers.
But it's still ongoing cybersecurity training. I don't want to stick people in a conference room and give them a check in the box training. I want to give them, quick hit snippets on a more often cadence that they can relate and bring it home. Do you know what I mean? I want them to be able to bring these strategies home with them and teach them how to protect their bank accounts, teach them how to protect their own online presence, their own digital presence. And then they'll bring that into work with them. What's in it for them? It's just, at the end of the day, for the entirety of the staff of your organization, what's in it for them? Think about it from that perspective. And that's when we'll start making some really, really good headway, because ultimately you're educating people on how to protect themselves personally. And that is something they can take everywhere they go.
Right.
So what you're saying is do this for the right reasons instead of just a compliance initiative?
That's right.
Right. Teach people how to protect their own social media accounts, to protect their data, to protect their bank accounts. They'll be better employees because they're using the practices they learn to protect their own stuff at work.
That's it.
That's the way better way to do it. But
right. And the only go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, this whole thing around cybersecurity awareness and training, we haven't learned that yet in 20 plus years.
Yeah, right. And the other piece I'd love to be able to share with the audience is make sure that customer service is forefront in your mindset and when you're engaging with the users. Because here's the thing. A user's going to call you and they're going to have, a false positive. Instead of getting frustrated and rolling your eyes and being like, stupid user, thank them. Because I would rather have people raising their hand for the wrong reason than not raising their hands at all. That's part of training them as well. It's okay to come to us if something smells off. If it's not, we're still in a good place. It's okay.
Yeah. We need to treat humans like humans.
Yes.
Right?
That's right. And you talk about what kind of CISO you are. And And, in my career, I've had the opportunity on changing hearts and minds of the brand of cybersecurity, right? Because again, going into a role where it hasn't been customer service centric and a business enabler or viewed that way, being able to change those hearts and minds and making it a comfortable environment and a comfortable culture to raise your hand is extremely important. Otherwise, you have people just hiding and not telling you things and not trusting you, thinking they're going to get in trouble, right? Or viewed differently. And that's not what you want. You want an open environment where people can raise concerns anytime they feel it, even if it's a false positive. It's okay.
Well, that's all training though, right? I mean, when you're talking to people and the way in which you react and respond to information they're bringing you, you're training them on how they're going to be treated in the future. So if it's a negative reaction, they're going to have a negative response.
Yep. Right. Customer service is key.
It's not about training. It's about education. Gentlemen, thank you so much for a great 2021. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is our last episode of 2021. May everyone have a happy and safe holiday and new year. We'll see you next year on Business Security Weekly.